when you think about the relationships that you had and the ones that you still been able to maintain, um,
Mhm.
what is that journey like as you started to see success in the thing that once was just this idea? What was the journey like with those relationships? Because I liked the way you put that. You felt alone for a little while, but you knew that's a part of the you can't just not go through that process, right? um Otherwise, who knows, you probably would still be miserable, right? um but what was the journey like? Give us some understanding of how those conversations probably were a little difficult, maybe some of them were easy. What was it like as you built your world and got more enthralled with it, but you have the buddies that want to still do the same stuff? They're inviting you, but maybe you're having to cancel a lot. Maybe Marcus is not as available, right, for
Yeah.
the normal annual routines as before. How did you navigate that world? Where, did you have to have some tough conversations and kind of be honest? What was that like for you?
I don't really think I had to have a lot of tough conversations. I think that what I had to realize, and this was one of my biggest breakthroughs, and I think we talked about this a little bit when we connected at Funnel Hacking Live, but I had such a corporate mindset that as I was shifting and building a business, I was forcing a corporate mindset on a different game. And, this is kind of where like the breakthrough that I had to have was just around corporate versus entrepreneurship. It's like checkers versus chess. Like the game board may look the same, like it's the same game board. You play checkers and chess on the same game board, but the rules are completely different. And if you play chess with checker rules, you will lose. If you play checkers with chess rules, you will lose. And so this idea of like, what is the game that I'm playing? As long as I understood that, then I was able to navigate it, even if the world and the people that I engaged with just mentally weren't there yet, because I had to get mentally there. And I'll tell you this, there are still people to this day that I can explain exactly what it is I do, and they have no idea, because some of it may be in tune to the game that I'm playing, and they're just playing a different game. And so in that sense, like it's and the easiest way to put it, I'm from Alabama. Anytime I go back to Alabama and talk with my parents or talk to some of their friends and explain what I do, they don't know anything about the online space. And so it's almost like having a conversation. They're just smiling and being like, that's great. No idea what you just said, but that's amazing. And so as long as I could embrace that and just understand the game I was playing, the domain, it was so much easier to navigate. But I never really felt the hardest conversations I had to have were mostly with myself, trying to realize I'm in this corporate job. I feel trapped. I'm successfully discontent, which I friggin' love that statement. But it wasn't until I was realizing that what was I doing with all my time off? I was going to conferences. I was joining coaching programs. I was buying courses. And finally, I had to take a step back to say, am I truly diagnosing what's going on here? Because going to these conferences and buying these coaching programs or courses, like I had to come to the realization that this is like a panacea for the underlying issue, which is really, I'm not playing the game I should be playing. I need to leave corporate. And for me, corporate occupied about 95% of my mind. And so, as you know, like if your brain is always thinking about your job, you don't have the capacity to think about how am I really going to go all in and grow this business. And like I was traveling so much that thinking through just wasn't like, it just wasn't, my head wasn't there. So having to let that go finally released the capacity for me to get a little bit more creative and clarity on what it is. And so that's what I ended up having to do, is I had to quit my corporate job in order to make the space to be able to get the clarity, not having any idea what was going to be.
You mentioned quitting, but Mark, I will tell you, corporate identity is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
And I embraced my corporate identity. I'm sure you did too, right? Like it feels good to have the title and the stature amongst your peers or whoever you look up to. How did you let go of the corporate identity in order to embrace this Mark Stern entrepreneur? Because I have found that that's one of the hardest and last things that most people struggle to let go of.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I got $165,000 in debt. This thing has to work because I put so much into it, right? Or you know, I've been here so long. Why would I, you know, jump off the cliff tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
What was that like for you, letting go of that corporate identity?
So part of it happened, and I can tell you like how like it was always something that had been on my mind, and I knew someday I'm going to make this leap. And when you're in that world, you're just going. You don't slow down. You're always on. You're always drinking from the firing hose. You're always traveling, and the time you slow down is between Christmas and New Year's because no one's working, so everyone takes that time off. Otherwise, people really don't take off a lot of time. December 27th, 2017. Went to bed at that night, woke up in the middle of the night, and professionally, I was on the verge of becoming a junior partner at Deloitte. Promotions are predictable in that environment. If you hit the numbers and you know, you meet the criteria, you know you're going to get promoted. I was weeks away from becoming a junior partner in that firm, and woke up in the middle of the night, bawling my eyes out. And I had this eerie sensation, which I'd never experienced in my life, that if I don't leave this job, it will kill me. That was the sensation. And I could actually, in the months leading up to that, feel my body starting to break down. I was much unhealthier at that point because I felt like every time I'd get on a plane, I always came off the plane and just felt a little bit weaker. And after that moment, that was like kind of like a wake-up call that I needed. And I came back and told the partner I reported to, this was on January 3rd of 2018, I can't explain it. I have to go, but I'm happy this is not a 2 weeks notice. It's let me finish this piece out, and stayed with the firm from January through May of 2018. Because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I needed to make that declaration. And the good thing about a lot of Deloitte, and there's a lot of companies that do this, if you are a high performer and you know, you leave on good terms, they'll always welcome you back. So if I decided that entrepreneurship didn't work, they know if I come back and they call you a boomerang, I know what I'm signing up for. But really, I wanted to set the intention that I didn't need to think about coming back, because you have to hold the belief that I will be fine. And the one thing I will say about that corporate identity is, even when I left corporate and became an entrepreneur, it took me years to detox enough of corporate out of me in a way that I could start to think differently. But the one thing I will always tell people, when you leave the corporate world and start a business and become an entrepreneur or build a side hustle, like, the most incredible part about this is there's a lot of people who don't have that corporate experience. So you never are starting from ground zero. I tell people, you're never starting from ground zero. You just need to learn how to play a new game, and then you layer on your expertise, and that's what makes you unstoppable. So the second I realized, oh wait, I have this amazing skill set that I've been building for years. When I learned how to play the entrepreneurship game and the online marketing game, once I layered on that expertise, you know, this is what, you know, my standards are different. The quality of the products that I look, like what I define as success for my clients, it's all different, but it's still holding true to the beliefs that I had in corporate. And that became one of the greatest gifts one of my greatest competitive advantages was all the things I learned from years of corporate coming into a brand new game.